this video, we are going to be reviewing fraction basics. Okay, so first of all, what is a fraction? So a fraction represents a part of a whole. Okay, so a part of a whole. So we can see that we have a part here. So go ahead and write part over the whole. So in this fraction, it represents 4 parts out of a total of 7, or the whole of 7. So we can say that is 4 out of 7. Okay, so in a proper fraction, the numerator is less than the denominator. And then we know that the numerator is going to be that part, the numerator, and that can be found on the top of the fraction bar. And the denominator, that's going to be our whole. Denominator, that is going to be found on the bottom. All right, so in an improper fraction, so an improper fraction is also known as a fraction greater than 1. The denominator is less than the numerator. So that would be in the case of 7 out of 4, or 7 parts out of a whole of 4. So that means it's greater than 1. So I would like you to shade the bar below to show the fraction 4 over 7. So we know it's here is our whole, and it's going to be broken up into 7 pieces. And it's really important that these pieces are equal, 7 equal pieces. And we're going to shade 4 of them to show that part. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this fraction now, or this bar now shows the fraction 4 out of 7. All right, so in the next part, we're going to show how you simplify a fraction. So to simplify the fraction, you are going to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So to simplify a fraction, divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Okay, so if we were to have the fraction such as 16 over 20, or 16 twentieths, we can see that that's not in simplest form, because we know that each of those numbers, they share a common factor. So we're going to take that and we're going to think, what is the GCF of those two numbers? The GCF of 16 and and 20. So I know that the GCF of those numbers is 4. So I'm going to use that as the divisor. So I'm going to divide the 16 by 4, and I'm going to divide 20 by 4. Each of those I'm going to reduce by a scale factor of 4. So 16 divided by 4 is 4, and then 20 divided by 4 is going to be 5. So that's what I've done here. There we go. And so now I have my fraction 4/5 in simplest form. You may have also heard this referred to as lowest terms. So I'll put that here. Lowest terms. There we go. But it's important to note that even though it's the word lower, it doesn't mean like it's a smaller number. These fractions actually have the same exact value. All right, so what does that look like visually? So here you have an array broken up into 20. So we have 4 by 5. So we know that 16 twentieths, so that's going to be 4 of these rows. Okay, this right now is showing 16 twentieths. But we know that here we have fifths, and here let's color 4/5 of them. we can see that visually we have the same exact amount. So that shows us that those are equivalent. So there is only one simplest form. There is only one simplest form, but there are an infinite number of equivalent fractions. Okay, so the reason why you use the GCF is that if you use that as the divider or the divisor, you'll always get the simplest form or the lowest terms. If you use another factor, such as I can see that they share a factor of 2 and you were divide by 2, you're going to get another equivalent fraction, but it won't be the simplest form. You'll have to then divide it again. So the GCF sort of saves you a step, but you don't have to necessarily do it in order to reduce that fraction. All right, in the last section, the equivalent fraction. So to write an equivalent fraction, you are going to need to multiply or divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Okay, so for example, I have the fraction 6/9. And now I want a whole bunch of equivalent fractions. So the first thing, the first equivalent fraction I'll look to is, let's find the fraction that's in simplest form or the lowest terms. So I'm gonna find the GCF. So the GCF of these two numbers is 3. So I'm going to divide both the numerator and the denominator by the same thing, by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is going to be 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So 2/3 is the lowest terms, but I can find a whole bunch more. Now, what if I were to then multiply each, the numerator and the denominator, by the same number? Let's say I multiply by 2. Now I have an equivalent fraction. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. 4/6 is equivalent to 2/3, which is equivalent to 6/9. Now, what if I were to then take that and multiply that by 2? And I do the same thing to the numerator and denominator. I'm going to get 4 times 2 is 8. 6 times 2 is 12. I now have another equivalent fraction. And then what if I were to find one that is, let's say, 10 times? So I multiply my numerator by 10 and my denominator by 10. 80 over 120. I have another equivalent fraction. Okay, so here I have now a whole bunch of different equivalent fractions. So it's kind of the same thing if you look back over here, where you're showing the same value. It's just the way that you've divided it is different, but it's still the same. So we're going to go back to the top here and show this 4/7. Let's show another one. I'm going to divide this in half horizontally. All right, so how many pieces do I have now? Well, I have 14 pieces because there were 7 and now I've made each one 2. So now there's 14. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them shaded. So this is now showing the fraction. Oh, I didn't even show that. Here, this is what I was drawing. It was cut off. Is 8/14. All right, so what I'd like you to do now is pause the video, and I'd like you to complete this part on your own, and then the image that's going to follow this video will show you some possibilities of what some of your answers might be. So use the same method, but you might have some different values. So go ahead and do that. That is fraction basics.